That was weird. All right. Hey, everyone on YouTube. Give me 1 second. Everyone on Facebook. So give me 1 second. Good. Haven't seen you for a week. All right. Let me see if I can get our friends back on Facebook here. There we can. There we go. Hey, Facebook. Glad everyone could join us. It is just me solo today. Margie and I were at a convention. Sometimes Transfiguring Adoption, we get invited to go out to fan conventions. And this one was actually the U.S. Quidditch Cup, and it took place in Round Rock, Texas. So we drove 16 hours to get there. And you're probably wondering about these stylish ears that I'm wearing. These are our elf ears that we sell for Transfiguring Adoption that help get resources to foster parents. The proceeds help us run everything that we do. They come in our Elf Squad kit, and we were selling them at the U.S. Quidditch Cup in Round Rock this weekend. So that is the reason I'm wearing this stylish hat. It's phenomenal, actually. It's really comfy. It's made of, what's that? Oh, Elf Squad. She's like really wanting to drive, and so it's her time to drive. We're going from Round Rock, where the U.S. Quidditch Cup was at, and we're driving back to Knoxville, to where our home base is at. So Elf Squad is Transfiguring Adoption's volunteer mobilization, and they do projects and different things to help support foster and adoptive families. And this is one of the things that they sell, along with T-shirts and other things, to help get money to be able to afford to do resources and tools and different things like this. So, hey, Rachel, glad that you're on here. Haven't seen you in a while. But yeah, so anyways, I am solo today because Margie is taking her turn driving. She really wanted to drive, and so she is concentrating on that, and I'm going to talk with you fine folks. So just so you know, my name is Darren Fink. I'm with Transfiguring Adoption. I am the co-founder of Transfiguring Adoption, and you have stumbled upon Monday Caregiver check-in. And during this time, we last for about half an hour to 45 minutes. We take a time out just to come together as caregivers, professionals, and those that want to support foster and adoptive parents. And we just ask questions. We talk about issues that you have, share advice, and just try to have a good time and support each other so that we can keep better helping kids for another week. So how was everyone's week? I've heard since being in Round Rock, Texas, let me tell you, we've gone from state to state to state, and the weather has been crazy. How is the weather where you're at? I want to hear how the weather where you're at is. We would wake up frequently in Round Rock, Texas, and the temperatures could be in the upper 30s or 40s, and then it would get up into the upper 80s. So it was a real... And then even driving home, right, really, and then got higher and then lower. It's fluctuated the whole way home. So weather is crazy, you guys. What is going on? Who broke the weather? But yeah, let me hear how your weather situation is going. I would love to hear how that has been. I wanted to talk today, if no one else has suggestions or any advice or anything like that they want to share, I wanted to talk about today just how do you know when you need to parent differently than other parents? So there are frequently a lot of times as foster and adoptive parents that we have to parent differently than other parents because our children have been through trauma. They've seen different things, been through different things than other kids have. And thus you just can't parent the same way. I have a kiddo that he might do something, and the first correction or disciplinary measure that one would think of is to send him to a timeout and make him go to his room and settle down where he was neglected for a good part of his early childhood. And so sending him off to be by himself isn't such a good idea, because he has a hard time regulating himself. And so he really needs that to have a time in where he's close to a parent, and the parent's able to sit there and control him and help him to regulate and help him to figure out how he's doing, because he can't do that on his own. That's like one example that I have of in our household, how we have to watch things and how we have to parent different than other parents. Is we can't just time out. But besides the obvious things like corporate punishment sounds different. Corporal punishment. What are some other ways that you guys find that you have to parent differently than other parents? And when do you know you need to parent differently? Hey, Zach, glad you could join us. I'm glad you're watching. But so yeah, two things. How's the weather by you? And when do you parent differently than other parents? So I was just sharing for those that are catching up with us. Sometimes I have to do a time in with my kids, and I can tell by a specific child, like I have to do a time in, because I have one kiddo that was neglected the early part of his life. And yeah, since he was neglected the first part of his life, sending him to his room as a timeout is not a good idea, because he can't regulate his emotions. He can't figure out how to do things. So, man, that's insane. I do not want to go home to sleep. So, but yeah, that's one example I can think of. I keep looking over here because we're, like I was telling other people, we're driving home from a convention. Margie's actually here. She said she just wanted to concentrate on driving, and I'm usually used to having her beside here as co-host, so I can look at her and get some more feedback and information. But what are times where you know you had to parent different than other parents, and you couldn't just do a timeout, you couldn't do corporal punishment, you couldn't do a slew of other things that I think parents would normally turn to? What are some different ways that you've had to parent? I can think of another one is that will we be at Marble? Zach wants to know if we'll be at Marble City. We will not be at Marble City this year. So for those of you thinking about the Transfiguring Adoption, because you might not know, like with the elf ears, our first tool that we used, that we created, was a tool using the Harry Potter series to help kids work through trauma, which you can find on our website. So if you're a caregiver on here, definitely go on our website at transfiguringadoption.com and check out that discussion guides on there. You can go read chapter by chapter through the Harry Potter series, and you can totally ask questions to your kiddo, and it'll indirectly help you to be able to talk with them about trauma that they've been through. It's a phenomenal tool. But we do go to conventions sometimes, fan conventions, and a lot of the Potter fans like to get involved and help and support parents. Marble City is one in Knoxville we normally go to. We are not going there this year, purely because we're still going to be in Knoxville. We're still doing stuff in Knoxville, but our home land changes that are happening right now, and we won't be able to make Marble City. We will be at Fanboy Expo, though. We'll be at Fanboy Expo. So, yeah, another thing that I can think of, though, is bedtime. For anyone that's on here, if you are a caregiver, like, how are bedtimes different for you guys? Does anyone have to do anything different with bedtime procedures? For us, we have kiddos that you might consider to be older. They sleep in our room still, and a lot of that is because we have to remember that our kids are half their emotional age. If they've been through chronic trauma's rewired the brain, and so typically they are emotionally not chronological age. They're usually half their emotional age, or half their age. Emotionally, they're half their age. A 10-year-old, but they're acting more like a 3 or 4 or a 5-year-old emotionally. So at bedtime, especially if they've been through trauma, like sexual abuse or just neglect, physical abuse. There are a multitude of things at nighttime that could have happened where they might not feel safe and they might want to run to mommy and daddy's room. And you're sitting there thinking, wow, 10 years old, that's too old to be in mom and dad's room. And I think you have to work around, like for our household, we have to work around that. So while the child's not getting into bed with us like a smaller child might, it's offering a place on the floor where they can feel safe and they can be like they're comforted and they're kind of getting that what they missed out in their childhood. So it's kind of helping them through some trauma. It's helping them get back kind of what they needed to have gotten in their childhood. But we have at least one kiddo that still kind of struggles with that, and infrequently, probably more so now that we're moving right now, that it happens where they're on the floor sleeping with us. So, but I think as normal parenting, I think you would say, hey, kid's too old, they need to sleep in their own bed, and it would be a fight, and it would be you will sleep in your own nest. But we're talking trauma, we're not talking typical parenting here when you have foster adoptive kiddos. So definitely that's something you have to do differently and just to try it out. So
say passing on late night activities because our kids can't go.
And Margie, I don't know if you guys can hear because we're in the car traveling back. Margie just chimed in. She said, another is deal with late night activities. So I know a lot of, for years, people would try to invite us over during the school week to do late night activities. So maybe board games, card games, not on the weekend, but during the school. Oh, you're even on the weekend too? Like, so like, yeah, like our kids need sleep because trauma has rewired their brain. They just can't handle it when they don't get enough sleep. And so there are a lot of times where people might invite you and they want you to stay long, long into the night. And we know as a family that just our kids aren't going to be able to hack it. They're not going to be able to be themselves the next day. They're not going to sleep in more than likely just because trauma, they don't want to. When you're asleep, you're at your most vulnerable. And for our kids, that's been dangerous in the past because they feel they're on survival mode. So to always be on survival mode and then go to sleep, that's scary because something could happen, like you might do something to you. So sleeping is scary. And then when you have them stay up too late and their body's not getting the sleep that it needs so that it can function correctly and all the cylinders are firing correctly, so to speak, it's no wonder like the next day, usually when Margie and I have done that, the kids just have a hard time the next day. They have meltdowns. They can't handle the smallest little thing's going to set them off. They just can't handle situations like they normally would be able to. And it's almost like setting them up for failure. And we get frustrated because they're out of whack, they're melting down, and they're frustrated, and it makes for a mess. So I think while normal families can have like the occasional night where everyone stays up really, really late, and then the next day everyone's okay, or everyone sleeps in, or everyone's just sluggish. Or foster adoptive families, I think that can't happen. And I think you have to know the limits of your kids. Does anyone else have that issue? Do you have like kids that they can't handle late nights, or do you have certain bedtime rules or bedtime things that look different than normal families? Like what does bedtime look like in your family that it might look different than other families? We definitely look different than normal families. It's funny that I'm saying we look different than normal families and I'm wearing elf ears. But for sure, bedtime is going to look a lot different for multiple reasons, because kids need to get to bed on time. They need their sleep more so than normal kids. And they might need mom and dad to help them just calm down and regulate themselves. So, yeah. Yeah.
I was going to say, sometimes...
I don't know if you guys are driving.
special routines, like.
Does anyone have any special routines or anything that? Does anyone?
Brushing, just like brushing protocols or different things that therapists have had you go through. Certain, like we've had friends that have had other certain routines that therapists have said they need to do before bedtime.
Is there any routines that anyone has that they have to do before bedtime? Like, I know that one of our kids had a brushing routine. And so that was supposed to help them with sensory needs and calming down and regulating. Just definitely an interesting routine that we had to do. Yeah, we could tell. If you're interested in the brushing routine, we could definitely email you or give you more information on that. But that was definitely an interesting thing, just to help with sensory needs and different things like that. So, yeah, you guys are awesome. Yeah, it is. Zach said earlier, though, it is bittersweet, like the whole them needing, I think he was commenting, I missed the comment, but earlier, just the bittersweet thing is kids being able to come to you and wanting to spend the night in your room. But the reason why, you know, like a 10, 11, 12-year-old wants to spend the night in your room is not the best, because it's just, they've had a lot of trauma go on and they don't feel safe, and so they want to come into your room, and again, that trauma has rewired their brain, so they're emotionally half their age. So it is bittersweet. It's very bittersweet. So yeah, you guys are amazing. How do you, so again, what bedtime routines, what do you do at bedtime? Is bedtime easy for your family? I want to hear from you and hear what you have to say about bedtime with your kids. Or if you're not a foster or adoptive parent, what would you do to make a child that's been through trauma feel comfortable and safe when you're putting them to bed? Like, what are some different things that you could do? I'd love to hear your comments on that. Even if you're not watching this live, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'd love to get back with you on that one. Hey, Nick, glad that you could join. But yeah, what would you do during bedtime for a foster adoptive kid? If you aren't a foster parent, what would you do to make a kid feel safe? Or what would you do or what do you do in your home to make kids feel safe at bedtime? Because I think bedtime, while we're talking about ways that you parent differently, I think it's definitely, nighttime is definitely a big one, because that's just, again, it's kids feel at their most vulnerable when they're asleep. And I think that's just about for anyone. You're very vulnerable when you're asleep, because you're not awake, you're not conscious. You're at the most easiest for someone to take advantage of you. And so bedtimes are very different for foster adoptive families, just because kids definitely pick up on that, because they've been in survival mode for most of their life, more than likely. And so sleeping and being vulnerable is not a good thing. I mean, even primitive, like out in the animal kingdom, animals don't want to appear vulnerable. That's why they won't act sick, even though they are sick or they're near death. They try to act normal and okay so that they can continue, so that something doesn't pick them off. And our kids go through very similar things. They don't want to get picked off. They don't look like they're okay, or they just don't go to sleep because they got to be on alert all the time. But yeah, so I'd love to hear what people think you could do at bedtime to calm kiddos or to make them feel better or help them to go to sleep. Definitely leave a comment below. I'd love to talk about it. One thing that we're doing right now actually is Transfiguring Adoption, our ELF squad, which is our volunteer mobilization. They are collecting night lights, and like for those of you that just joined us, didn't hear, Margie and I were just down at a convention called US Quidditch Cup, which Quidditch is a sport they play in the Harry Potter books, and it's an actual sport now. It's grown into an actual sport. A lot of the people that play actually have no clue about the books or the movie. They love playing the sport, but they actually were helping us to collect night lights. And the reason we're collecting night lights is because the night lights help kiddos to feel safer. And how do they do that? Well, because most foster adoptive kiddos, most adults have lied to them or not. They haven't been upfront with them. They've lied to them. So whenever, or they've hurt them. And so kids with this kind of past are going to a foster home, and the foster parents are telling them, you're going to be safe tonight. You're safe in our house. Well, history has told them that adults lie and adults hurt me. So why should I believe this adult stranger that I'm going into their home? So what the nightlight does is it allows the foster parent to put the nightlight into the room. And so after telling the kiddo you are safe, the nightlight's going to help physically back up the words of the foster parent. So every time that kid that night hears a bump in the night and wakes up, they're going to be able to see the room and see what's going on and see that it's just the house settling, that it was just a noise, that they're fine, that everything's okay, so that they can get more sleep because they're going to be a little bit calmer. But it's definitely the next morning the kid's going to be able to tell that parent, that foster parent, told them the truth. Nothing happened to them. And it puts the whole situation more into the kid's hands. It's not just the adult saying you're going to be okay, deal with it. It's saying you're going to be okay. Now you can look and see for yourself that you're going to be okay. Dusty, it says, hold on one second, Dusty. Dusty just commented, another way to help is to hang wind chimes at the door so that the kid knows that everyone will hear if anyone goes into their room, which reinforces safety. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. Another thing that you can do is they have inexpensive door chimes that you can get like at Walmart and different places like that. So the wind chimes are definitely nicer sounding. The wind chime or the door chime is definitely one, like everyone's heard it. It's when you go into a store and you just hear that annoying bam, bam sound when you walk into a store, a regular mom and pop store. The only thing that I like about the door chime though is that it's loud and it's annoying. It's like it will definitely, you're not going to get it confused with your cell phone or anything else. And it's loud, so you're going to hear it throughout the house. And I like that because the kiddo knows that everyone's going to be able to hear it no matter what. Like, even if you don't want to hear it, you're going to hear it. Again, the con to that is that whenever they open and close their door, then everyone in the house is hearing that bam sound. So yeah, Dusty says some kids were hurt at night, so they are afraid to sleep in the dark. This way they can sleep without worry. And that's huge. I think even with the night lights, it's a small thing. It's something that people don't think about. But yeah, it helps them to get more sleep. And with more sleep, you're able to perform better. And like we were talking earlier in the discussion, you're able to get more sleep. You're able to, our kids are able to function better. And they're not as frustrated. And you're not as a caregiver aren't as frustrated with them. It just helps anxiety and tensions and everything. When everyone's well rested, you can just deal with a lot more. So that little nightlight is doing a big thing. Yeah, whoops. Sorry, guys. Our connection lost us for a little bit. Yeah, Dusty's saying it is more so they understand that someone can't come in and hurt them without people knowing. Yeah, definitely. The wind chimes sound amazing. I really think, I think that's a great idea. I really like that. And I think it sounds more homey than the door chime. The door chime, to be honest, we've had in our homes with kids that have safety plans. So it's a dual role where we need to know that everyone on both sides of the door is safe. So that we know that the child leaving the room, we need to know when they're leaving the room to keep them safe so that they don't do something they'll regret. And we need to know if someone tries to go into that room against the plan. So yeah, I like the wind chime idea. Like Dusty's even saying, you can personalize it, you can do your own thing. Yeah, I think there are a lot more options there. And that's kind of like what we talked about on another discussion. One reason that we like Build-A-Bear workshops so much in the malls and different things is not so much because it's cheap, not because it's practical or anything else, but because you spend time with the child, and you get to know them and you get to talk with them and you bond over making that stuffed animal. And I think the wind chimes, it could be the same thing. Like, you get to talk with them, what's your favorite color? You can see what their favorite style is, and it just gives you something to do together. Yeah, Dusty's even saying, when you give a safety message, do it with kindness and compassion and on their level. Yeah, I mean, the safety concerns are always there. And we always try to make it, in our house anyways, sound like, we try to show, even when it's the child that has the safety plan because they've had an infraction or something, an incident happen, we definitely phrase it in a way that this is to keep you safe and to protect your future. Because, I mean, it totally and honestly is. It's that safety plan is not just like, I think people can have a tendency to make it be like it's a disciplinary measure, or you did something stupid, or all this other stuff, and just really, but it's really a lot of the times when our kids need these safety plans, they've come from a traumatic past. They've had stuff modeled that way. There's a multitude of reasons of why they did the behavior that they did, and usually they're trying to figure out how to help themselves, or move past an issue, or they're just trying to adults haven't been there for them in the past to help them move past some issues and some abuse. So they're trying to figure out how to do it on their own, and they're just doing it in improper and incorrect ways, but it's the only way they know how. And so these safety plans are putting something in place to protect them so they don't do something that they're going to regret again, or maybe even the first time. Just it's a way of putting up a fence and saying, okay, here's the line. You can't cross this line. It's that line is there to protect you. So yeah, I think it's always, yeah, definitely kindness and compassion. I totally agree with that. But yeah, like, what are some other things that you guys do at bedtime? I love the wind chime idea. There are just a lot of, I think there are so many ways that we have to, when do you know that you need to treat situations differently? Like, when do you know that as a foster parent, I can't treat this situation as like a regular parent would treat it? So that was our original question, and we kind of went into nighttime and bedtime routines. But I mean, I think nighttime and bedtime is just so easy to talk about because it is so different, and it's easy to see that, yeah, this child needs help because they've had an abusive situation where they can't be treated like a normal child. Again, my story with the time in, because the time out, when you have kids that have felt like they've been neglected or they have been neglected, putting them in a timeout is putting them back in that place, like, is kind of sending them back to, like, remember those times when adults neglected me and I was all on my own and I had to fend for myself. And so a timeout doesn't help with that. It also, if they have attachment disorder, that's not going to help them either, because they need to learn how to have a time in and be with people and work through issues and problems and communicate. So I think there's definitely things in our children's past that can tell us, hey, it kind of points us to different things that we need to be doing and looking at. But I would love to hear from you guys what you think. Since we're on the road here, my battery on all my stuff is going to be dying here soon. So I've got a couple more minutes that I can take. But hey, Brittany's watching. Got a couple more minutes that I can take to keep going, but I'm going to have to close out soon. Dusty says it is all kid dependent. There are no blanket rules. Each kid is different, and each child, whether foster or biological. Open communication is key. Timeout doesn't fly here. We use square breathing and just bubbles of space that are personal. and we use the drama. Oh, I love the drama llama animal. You'll have to add another comment that explains the drama llama animal, because that's you totally need. Yeah, definitely. You need to do a guest blog for us, Dusty, of explaining the drama llama animal, because that is phenomenal. Yeah, Dusty's been on here before if you're just viewing, and she's explained this drama llama that helps kiddos, and I won't take the time to do it because she'll do a much better job. But yeah, you need to do a guest blog for us. Each child is different, though. I think that's it seems like a duh. Like, oh, Darren, every kid's different. But I think it's one of those things that it's easy to say now, but if I threw you in a situation where you had a foster adoptive kiddo and we're dealing with the trauma behaviors, I think it's like yeah, like when you have Margie's over here telling me, whoops. Oh, I lost Facebook again. Oh, no. But like when you have cussing from a teenage child, what do? Normal parenting, most parents, I think, might... Oh, got Facebook back. Sorry, guys, we have bad connection. I'm going to have to end here soon anyways because of the battery power life I have on everything. But Margie was just chiming in from over here on the driver's seat saying, you know, another thing that's hard to tell to do as a foster adoptive parent is like when you have swearing or cussing. Like a lot of us, I think, would say... You know, when you hear a teenager or any child, I guess, swear or curse, like the immediate response is to jump on it and nip it in the bud and, hey, that's like really get on it. But I think one interesting thing as a foster adoptive family, I think as a foster adoptive family, I think sometimes we have bigger fish to fry. And if they're swearing, but they're communicating with you, that's one time, like when, especially if they've just come into our home, where we're willing to let it, like we totally don't look at the swearing and the cursing, and so we'll parent probably different than normal parents because we don't even acknowledge that they're dropping F-bombs with us and stuff like that. As long as they're able to communicate their feelings and what they need, we're actually more concerned about, can they do that? Can they tell us what's wrong with them, what they need? Can we figure something out? And then later down the road, let's get to, okay, now that we have basic survival needs and we can communicate and have a relationship with each other, let's talk about, hey, swearing might not be the best form of communication for a multiple reasons we can go into. But yeah. Dusty says cursing's not a big deal simply because I have bigger battles to pick. At least they're talking, and one day I will share. I tackle lies. Yeah. Lies are a tough one. But yeah, I totally agree that we have bigger fish to fry than swearing and cursing. And I know, I think that can get into one of those things too, where I think other other parents in normal situations can get anxious and tense and upset that, you know, our child might be swearing or cursing and their kids are, but I think that's where we need to support each other and just realize that is a thing. As a foster adoptive parent, that's a thing. And it's okay if you ignore that for the time being because you have bigger fish to fry. And quite honestly, if your child can't communicate and form relationships, it doesn't matter if they can swear, if they're swearing or if they're not swearing. If they never swear and that's all you teach them is not to swear, but they can't form friendships, they can't attach to people, they can't communicate, they can't problem solve. I mean, think about it. They're never getting a job. They're never going to be able to keep a marriage, to have children. I mean, their life is going to fall apart, but at least they're not swearing, right? Like, we have bigger fish to fry, and we owe it to our kids to teach them a lot more than just worrying about swearing. Yeah, tackling lies is a huge one, I think. Yeah, and Dusty's saying she finds swearing goes away when you ignore it, and I totally agree with that. Like, I think swearing, it's if you give it attention, you get more. If it's just whatever, you're just not going to get it so much. So, Definitely, definitely. Dusty, definitely send us, yeah, definitely send us that information on the animals that you use. Send it to Darren, Darren, at transfiguringadoption.com. Would love for you to do a guest blog on it. Okay, so Dusty says, do you all do the bigger lie is better thing? So if my kids lie, they won't get in trouble if they lie, as long as the lie is over the top and creative. This makes them think about the lie instead of it just out of habit. Wow, I've never even tried that before, but I'm willing to try that one. I've never heard of that. So, like, if I'm hearing this right, I'm hearing that it's, so basically if they're really creative and they make it this, like, just this over the top, like, obvious lie, they don't get in trouble because they're having to be creative and actually think instead of, yeah, that's interesting. I'd be willing to, I'd never thought about that. I'd be willing to try that one. We do, one thing that we will do in our house, especially when the kids are smaller and they just won't stop talking, because there's a thing there with talking, being secure, being like, it's when your child has excessive chatter, sometimes it means that they don't want to be forgotten because they've been neglected early on in life. So if they feel like they're going to be neglected or forgotten, they might just excessively chatter so that you can't forget them. But they might ask why a lot, like why this, why that, why. And we had that with several of our kids when they were little, before they were adopted, where they would just constantly, to the point where we had an aunt watch one of the children one time for a short amount of time. And this aunt, she was phenomenal. She is phenomenal. And she likes children to ask questions and be curious. And so we kind of got on to our kid, though, about like, don't wear her out with the questions. Don't. And, you know, this aunt was phenomenal. And she said, no, let them be curious. Let them ask questions. And we kind of were like, okay, if you're sure. And we left. When we came back, she was like, wow, they won't stop. They won't stop asking. Like, it's been this way for like 2 hours. So, but that's excessive chatter is a thing. So one way that I would stop excessive chatter and the asking why questions is when they would ask me why, I would use a formula that was because, and then I would pick a color, an animal, and just like a stupid action. Like, so if they ask me, so why did that happen? Why did this? Why that? I would say, because purple giraffes don't eat ice cream on Sundays. Oh, I forgot, you have to add a day of the week too. Or, you know, because orange gorillas don't hopscotch on Monday.
But not just for asking questions, but it was asking questions that they knew the answer to.
Right, and it was also like Margie was just telling me, I would use that a lot too with like when it wasn't just like questions like why or you know, what time, like it was usually questions that they knew the answer to, and we could obviously tell that they were asking questions because they just wanted to keep talking and they had anxiety about being forgotten. And then once I did that silliness, I could say, look, I know you're here. You're not forgotten. You're fine. You're okay. And then I could actually go back and ask them I'm like, if they would say, that's not the answer, I'd be like, oh, you know what the answer is? Yeah. And then I'd say, so why'd you ask the question? And then they would, you know, yeah. Dusty said, so if you don't have your homework done, a simple, I did it lie doesn't fly. I was abducted by aliens and then the Loch Ness Monster ate it. Is okay. I'm not celebrating the lie. I'm making them realize that they're telling the lie. After a while, they give up and just start telling the truth. That's fun. It's less effort. It's creative too. That's what I like. And I think that's, it brings humor into it too. And I think that's one of our biggest weapons as foster and adoptive parents is humor, because it takes away the tension. It's play. It just makes everything. And while we're playing, we learn more. And so Phenomenal. Dusty, I love those comments. That's phenomenal. Again, I really want you to guest blog about that llama drama animal. But everyone, like I said, if you're just joining us, Margie and I had a convention to go to, which is why I have these stylish ears on. We are getting ready. Scott says, does that apply? Hey, Scott. Does that apply to appearing to, does that also apply to appearing to know it all and continuing to go on and on about a subject as if they're an expert?
Yes.
Yes, it can. So yeah.
Speaking from experience.
And Margie says it's speaking from experience. Yeah, it definitely can. Yeah, it's you can definitely still have fun with it and just play with it. Like I think the know-it-all thing, I would definitely just what have I done? I'm trying to think of what I've done. Like, it's actually flabbergasted me because we actually have some kiddos that do that, and I have said before, I'm just like, I'll joke around and be like, wow, congratulations, you know that one again. Do you want a cookie this time? And just like, or Margie just said that's so mean. Like, but yeah, just or just even joking with them, like, wow, you haven't forgotten that, have you? Or just like, I don't know. There are humorous ways to get around it that I'm too sarcastic probably. But definitely humor getting around the know-it-all, because I think the know-it-all attitude can definitely wear a caregiver out.
Well, it wears the other kids out.
But and it can wear other kids out too. But I think for that, the kid that's doing it, especially if they've come from an area of trauma, it's again, they're keeping score. Like, it's not just, and I've had this also through counseling. A counselor has told us this with our family, is it's not just that child knowing it all, but they're actually keeping score in their head of like, I did good. I'm a good kid. That's one for me. That's a point for me because I knew something. So while it's annoying and it's frustrating and it's draining, don't forget that kid is actually keeping score in their head, because if you watch it, like, you can almost tell, like, if they get it wrong, if they'll tell you a fact and they're all proud of themselves and you're like, well, actually that's not, you can almost see their head drop because they didn't get a point, and they're not, and in their head, they're now not worth anything, just like they weren't worth anything at their bio home. So they're actually, so have fun with that one, but make sure that the kiddo feels valued and secure, because they are keeping score with the know-it-all. Yeah. Okay, you guys, stinks because we're starting to get into some fun conversations, but my battery is telling me that it does not want me to continue on. We are going to be here every Monday at 5 o'clock. Obviously, you can see we're here whether we're on the road, whether we're in our home office, or wherever. Next week, Margie's looking forward to being back, but I told her that she could be on here today, and she was raring to drive. Just keep going, because we are going to get here late.
Well,
but
next Monday, we're closing on our Knoxville house. So
yeah.
Moving next Monday.
So next Monday, you guys will see us at a new location even than our home office, because we will be closing on our house, and so our home office will no longer be accessible to us. So very cool. So I'm so excited that everyone came here. If you are a foster adoptive parent, you are amazing. You haven't been told that enough today. You are making a difference in a child's life, more so than you think you are. If you're a professional or someone that just wants to support caregivers, you are amazing. There are not enough of you in the world helping us. And just wanted to thank everyone so much. Join us next Monday. Please tell your friends so we can have more conversation and more fun. Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we'll be on Facebook and YouTube. We'll also be on Instagram and Twitter as if we can, but we'll definitely are always on YouTube and Facebook. Join us next week, you guys, and get those questions in and those discussions. You guys are doing amazing. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. This is Darren Fink with Transfiguring Adoption. I hope we're helping to nurture and grow your foster or adoptive family. Thank you, Facebook. You guys are amazing. And thank you, YouTube. We will see you later.